I know you're tired. You have a long day. You've done a great job. You know, I'd like to say this has been a tougher cycle for you as finance chair than the others, but listening to our colleague Senator Birdwell talk about his life's experience, I don't think any of us have ever had a bad day compared to what he's been through. Senator, is it fair in your judgment to describe a budget as, in addition to being a spending measure or an appropriation measure, is it fair to say that a budget is really a reflection of our values? I mean, in terms of the stuff we do here, all of us think whatever bill we have is the most important one, but is it fair to say a budget being the most important thing we'll vote on is pretty much an assessment, a statement about our values, what we believe in?
Yeah, would you allow me to agree with you, but add a codicil, if you will, within the constraints that we are under, within the constraints that we're all under, I think it is a fair reflection of our values.
Yeah, and that's a good point, within the constraints that we're all under. I heard Dean Whitmire make the point that I was going to make earlier about how it would be difficult for anybody to fairly characterize what has gone on this session with regard to our spending as a partisan issue, because this would have all been for naught if the Democrats hadn't passed Senator Duncan's bill the other day. I want to ask you this question. Were you shocked at the vote turnout? As we were going through the process and you were working on me to make a commitment to a couple of things, did you think that that vote would end up being so did you think you'd get all of the Democrats? And barely, it wasn't 12, Dean Whitmire's 9. 12 Democrats and 9 Republicans. Did you think that would be the turnout on that vote, particularly after you made the point, if that bill didn't pass, the budget was dead?
Well, I didn't look on it as a partisan issue. What I noticed was 23. I think on final passage, was it 21 to 9 or 22 to 9?
I know the one that counted was 21. I'm not sure which cycle it was.
Let's say what I noticed was the fact that it was above 21, and I said, I sure wish I could get that on House Bill 1, but couldn't.
Senator, I want to make the point that when you said earlier about what conservatives believe, I think you will agree with me, this has always been a conservative place, even when the other party was in control. And I say that to make this point. Texas ranks 46 in revenue per capita and 50th in tax expenditures per capita. And it didn't get there when the current party in charge took over. It has historically been a very conservative state in terms of spending. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's conservative, and I think people are driving here and moving here as fast as they can. I think we're doing something right. Well,
that's a good point to make. They are driving here. They are moving here, and we brag about that growth, but a lot of them do show up, and then when they buy a home and they find out our property taxes are much higher than they are in other places in the country, then they look at our system of taxing people, which you have commented on from time to time, and stated that it is fairly antiquated. You have a guess. There's no reason why you know where we rank in terms of per capita expenditures for students compared to other states? 38th. 38th in current expenditures per student, 48th in state and local expenditures per pupil in our public schools.
And, you know, I mean, that's a sobering statistic, but I have read that one of the highest per capita expenditure is New Jersey. And I've never heard of anybody from Texas saying, let's go to the public schools in New Jersey, ever. Have you?
Well, to be honest with you, my oldest that ended up graduating from Columbia graduated from public schools in New Jersey. And a lot of the issues that we argue about here, like teacher-pupil ratio, it made a difference if you're in the right neighborhood. She was not I won't call out the neighborhoods most people think about. She was not in a larger city, but she was in a suburb and got a very good public school education. To be from Texas, to be essentially considered a Texas resident, coming out of a public school and to get into a good college. In part, it was because certain schools in that state, because of the low teacher-pupil ratios, are considered some of the best in the country. Here's where I'm headed, Mr. Chairman. At the end of the day, assuming that this budget does pass, do you think any of our rankings in Texas are going to go up? Or do you think that they will go down? Major rankings in terms of uninsured, spending on education compared to other states.
You know, Senator, it just depends on the ranking. I mean, if you focus Texas and evaluate Texas only on government spending, then I'm not sure the rankings are going to change much. Other states have more serious budget shortfalls than us. I wouldn't be surprised if you pass this budget that as far as state spending, it might even go up because other states got a much bigger hole than I. But you know, the people that move here and the people that I represent don't just rank Texas on how much government we have. They rank Texas on a lot of other areas, and what this budget does is, in my opinion, it doesn't damage what really makes Texas Texas and brings people here.
I know it does concern you that we're right near the bottom, 49th in percentage of the population who graduated from high school. And you mentioned the increase from the House budget in terms of what will go into college financial aid. You know, obviously, we've raised the standards. I'm just concerned that this budget is not going to do an adequate job because so many people are moving to Texas. I would like to ask you this. In terms of the process, you're a good counter. And assuming you don't have 21 to bring this bill up today, you did manage to have enough votes to get Senator Duncan's method of finance out the other day. If you don't have the 21 to bring this bill up today, well, what happens then?
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
You mentioned that you're going to offer an amendment to the budget. Is it fair to say that's fairly unprecedented to amend a budget on the floor?
That type of amendment would be unprecedented, yes.
Right. And I want to close with this, and I want members to think about it as we go through the process. In 2003, we changed precedent here considerably by having a vote on redistricting without the two-thirds tradition, which I think gives us a tremendous amount of collegiality, makes us find a consensus. However you define that. Sometimes it means a plurality, but enough folks want to say, give me a pass. Sometimes it means a majority. And then for 2 sessions now, we've had this tradition of a special order while we go in and decide certain issues rise to such a level of importance. We're going to do that by something less than two-thirds tradition. And then if there's an attempt to pass a budget, a document that you and I agree is pretty much our value system, by something less than that tradition of a two-thirds vote, what we're essentially doing is making the decision that we're going to change the whole nature of how things operate here, because that'll mean we did it on a highly political issue, very partisan issue, and everybody agrees to that when it comes to redistricting. Then on the issue of how people exercise their constitutional right to vote, and then if we opt to do that on our value system, our budget, that is a very bad precedent. From time to time, members talk about a slippery slope. I mean, that is the slipperiest of all slopes. Lastly, I want to say to you, Mr. Chairman, I know you thought about not coming back. As hard as this is, I'm glad you did come back, and I sent you a heartfelt note when it looked like you're out of the process, and I'm glad you came back. And I hope as we go through the rest of this cycle, you think about what you would have been thinking if you hadn't come back. And assuming you decide not to do this again, do you really want this document, after all of the work you have done and all of the years you put in public service, to be your final value judgment in terms of what you think about as the priorities for funding the state of Texas? But I thank you for your work.